Ooh, I heard you returned your Apple Vision Pro, okay? I don't think you're an Apple sheep anymore. Return your card. Hey, Frankie, I mean, I'm still kind of an Apple sheep, though. Look at my wall. When was even the last time you bought and kept an Apple product? Last year? Yeah, but that was just a couple months ago. I got a 15 Pro. Yeah, the cheapest 15 Pro, 128 gig chump. Yeah, and for the most part, I really like it. For the most part? Okay, I'm done with you. Not my brother anymore. Nice to see you, too, Frankie. Let's begin. Alright, well these are usually the easier short-term reviews because the phone is not that old, but I will say a lot of the main reasons I wanted to buy a 15 Pro ended up not being all that important in the long run. Dare I say, I somewhat regret grabbing the 15 Pro over the regular 15 just because most of what I like I've discovered about the 15 Pro can be purchased in that much more affordable trim. I mean, the main arguments that I originally was thinking of going with the 15 Pro was the higher transfer speed USB-C port, but thanks to macOS and iOS not having a great handshake and the confusion of importing footage through Final Cut or image capture and it just not being all that fast, it not taking advantage of the full speed port, and in order to really take advantage of that higher write speed on the iPhone 15 Pro, I need to plug in an external drive, and I already plug in an external microphone, so having multiple accessories or dongles hanging out the phone just gets a little bit annoying. So I wish there was a way for macOS to take better advantage of the hardware in my iPhone. But because of that, I've actually just been airdropping a lot of my footage now from my iPhone to my Mac, and while it's not the most reliable thing in the world, neither is plugging it in, because there's still been a lot of bugs and hiccups whenever I try to import directly to Final Cut or through image capture. And AirDrop has become reliable enough and fast enough that I can even send fairly large file sizes of, 4K at 60 over to my Mac within a couple of minutes, and you know how lazy I am. I love skipping steps so I don't have to fuss around with wires. I literally just hit share and boom, within a few minutes, all of the footage I'm ready to edit is already on the computer. Part of that, though, is definitely because I kind of gave up on the whole ProRes recording thing. I dove more into that in my review from a couple months ago, but that was one other motivation that pushed me over to the 15 Pro was, oh, they let me record at lossless with ProRes and all those fancy formats that fill up your phone storage a lot faster, but you'll be able to have more dynamic range and you can color correct it in post. And I watched a lot of different color correction tutorials. I color corrected it the way I liked and no one else liked it, and then I let a couple of fans try to color correct the footage. I didn't like that as much, and at the end of the day, YouTube kind of steamrolls all of the detail that you get out of it anyway, and I realized at the end of the day, a lot of people don't really care. A-roll, in other words, the footage of me just talking to the camera, is not that important to a lot of people just because they tend to have my videos going on in the background. So if people aren't spending that much time focusing on my video, why spend so much time and money making sure the video looks perfect, having to store a lot more footage and having to take longer to get videos into production? No, I'm all about that efficiency of workflow. Just keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it simple. So I haven't ended up really utilizing that lossless recording feature. And the other thing I thought might make a bigger difference was I got the 15 Pro because it supported spatial video recording, only to find out once it finally got spatial video recording, it's only 1080p at 30 frames a second, which is not that immersive. Then of course, after watching spatial videos on my Apple Vision Pro, I wasn't that impressed. I didn't find it that immersive, partly because it can't involve too much motion, for one, otherwise the UI gets mad at you for being too shaky. Secondly, there's nothing very lifelike about 1080p at 30 frames a second, especially when you're trying to watch things at the scale of like a movie theater screen, and when you watch spatial videos on Vision Pro, it has to kind of condense them down into these very small windows, and the depth effect really only works when subjects are between 3 to 6 feet away from the camera. Most of the time, I'm usually not recording videos that I watch back later that involve mounting the camera in one position and keeping the subjects 3 to 6 feet away. It's just too niche for me. So also, the spatial video support is not really something that ended up paying off in the long run. So that's not really won me over with the 15 Pro. However, one thing that I will acknowledge has made a far bigger impact than I initially expected is by far the action button. Every time we go on a trip, every time we're on vacation, there's been so many times where we're seeing something really quick and we're either driving by it or flying by it or something, and we don't have much time to fuss around with launching the camera on my phone. So instead, I reach into my pocket, hold down the action button as I'm pulling it out, and by the time I get right here, the camera app is already open and ready to go, and then I can just click the volume button to start and stop recording or take the picture, and it's just so much faster and so much more useful than a ringer switch, which I basically never used. And of course, yes, while I don't think this was a good enough reason to spend the extra money on the Pro, I do really appreciate the ProMotion display. I do notice it. It matches the refresh rate of my MacBook Pro, so it's nice to have that buttery smooth refresh rate symmetry. But I've gone through therapy and I can accept that not all displays are 120 Hz, and I can comfortably use a 60 Hz iPhone if I feel like it. It's hard, I understand. It's difficult for us all to see refresh rates that low, but I can do it. And I wish I could say the experience has just been great. You know, I love that buttery smooth refresh rate. I love the lighter design. I've really noticed and appreciated the thinner bezels. Even when I pick up my friend's iPhone regular 15 or whatever, I notice how much chunk the bezel is around the edge, which makes the phone a little bit bigger. I like how compact and comfortable the 15 Pro feels, especially with its more rounded off edges. I'm so glad they finally extinguished stainless steel from these things. Had no place on big iPhones like this. We try to get them lighter, guys. Think of what Steve Jobs would have wanted. We were just putting these expensive heavy metals in our phones that did nothing, really. They were glossy and so fingerprinty. The titanium is great. I love the look and feel of my 15 Pro. Aside from the camera bump, I wish it was more like the Pixel so it wouldn't wobble so much. But anyway, the biggest problem that I keep running into is unfortunately not a very widespread one. So I haven't seen a ton of people reporting on this, but because I use my phone, like right now, for work a lot of the time, recording myself, I've run into this bug where oftentimes my phone, without warning and without much repetition, will just stop recording for no reason. And it's very hard to repeat. Sometimes it's after just 30 seconds of recording, and then I go back and check the phone and I'm like, hey, it stopped for some reason, and I can hit start recording again. So it's definitely not a storage problem. It's not like the storage full pop-up came around. And sometimes I can record for 18 minutes and then it will suddenly stop recording. Again, no rhyme, no reason. Some people said it was a RAM management issue, so I tried closing all of my background apps every time I started recording, which is kind of annoying because I know Apple tells you not to close all the background apps anyway, but I was willing to try anything to make this work, and that didn't fix the problem either. I could still go 12 minutes and it would stop recording. And I don't think it's an overheating issue because I felt my phone get really, really hot in the past when doing some complicated, video exporting, and the phone never really feels that hot. It's not recording, lossless ProRes or anything like that, but immediately after it stops recording, I can start recording again and it'll go for another 12, 15 minutes, no problem. And other people said, oh, it's some kind of problem with your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connectivity, so I've tried deactivating Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when I start recording, and that didn't fix it. And I even took it to the Apple Store because I was getting so frustrated with how common this was becoming, and sometimes it would even stop recording and not make a sound, and I would lose a bunch of my videos. And as someone who uses my phone for work a lot, that gets really annoying when you sit down and are talking to the camera for 20 minutes, and then it turns out that it wasn't capturing any of it. You just feel like an idiot afterwards. You feel like you wasted so much time. And when I took it to the Apple Store and explained the situation to them, explained them that it's not repeatable, it doesn't happen like every single time. Like I will go 4 or 5 days without having a problem, but then when it happens, it's the most frustrating thing ever, especially when you're in kind of a time crunch. And they ran diagnostics on it and said that there's nothing wrong with the hardware. They basically just told me to factory reset the phone, which is going to be a big headache because of all the different apps I've got logged in on there, and I know I could do that at some point. It's just going to be kind of a pain in the butt. They told me that's just what they would do and that it might not necessarily solve the issue. So my guess is it's one of these really deep hidden bugs that maybe only happens when you're plugged into an external microphone, but that's the funny thing. My wife, who's helped me film lots of videos on my iPhone without using an external microphone, has still run into this issue. It's a great camera. I'm very impressed by the video quality on the 15 Pro. Even when you just record the normal HEVC codec, I've interviewed CEOs with this phone. I've driven prototypes and filmed it with this phone. phone, and we still run into issues where it just randomly stops recording, and I can't figure out what the heck is causing it. I'm not recording from the Blackmagic camera app either. I'm just using the normal camera app, by the way. I'm making sure that the tripods and stuff are not touching the volume buttons on the side of the phone because I know that can start and stop recording. So again, there's no rhyme or reason to this, but it's a very frustrating bug that I'm hoping gets resolved in a future software update randomly, but I'm trying to bring more attention to it in the form of this video so that hopefully Apple or someone can find it in some way, shape, or form. But so far, it still randomly keeps happening no matter what different things I've tried, and I love everything else about the phone so much, so it's difficult for me because I don't want to switch to a Pixel just to solve this one problem, even though I really liked the Pixel 8. The hardware is great over there, but the software is just nowhere near as good as it is for iOS. So I don't know if it's a manufacturing defect that they can't replicate, and maybe I just need to replace the whole thing, but I thought I'd send it out there just to see if anybody else is having the same bug. Most people are probably not out there recording 4K at 60 videos for 20 minutes every single day, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people never notice this bug, but I'm noticing it, and it's very frustrating, and I hope it gets resolved. But aside from that, it's been a fantastic phone. I've kept the battery charge limit on 80% almost every single day. Right before I do a big shoot where I'm recording like away from home or not at the office, I'll typically charge it up to 100% just so it can calibrate, but I've had no problems getting by with 80% for my daily uses, probably just because I have wireless chargers everywhere at my desk, in the car. It's not a big deal for me to charge to 100% every single day. I don't get why people are so picky about that, and thankfully the battery health, at least right now, is still at 100% despite me using my phone so much. So Type-C was definitely the biggest win for me, being able to charge my MacBook and my phone with the same cable, plug in my external microphone, and it just works. Couldn't get that to work with Lightning, so yeah, I think I honestly could have been very, very happy with the regular iPhone 15, but 15 Pro is the next best thing. It's a little bit smaller, it's not quite as lightweight, but I get that more future-proof refresh rate, and I guess I have a telephoto lens, which I haven't used all that much, but it's kind of nice to have occasionally. Definitely don't need that LiDAR though. I don't know what the heck that thing is doing. But I felt more comfortable going with the 15 Pro, knowing that the 16 Pros are just going to get bigger, and I want phones to get smaller, so USB-C with the smallest iPhone possible is basically my dream iPhone, and that's what we have here with the 15 Pro, and I hope I can keep it for quite a long time, but I'm not going to make any commitments anymore because I've eaten crow so much when it comes to saying I'm not going to upgrade and then I eventually do. So no more promises. We'll just see what happens when the iPhone 16 launches. The regular 16s, honestly though, sound pretty tempting as well. Feel free to let me know how your experience has been with the 15 Pro down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos, so thanks again. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.